Alright, so now let's add in animations. Adding animations is actually really easy. Now there are two ways of adding animations. The normal sprite way, or you can create bones for your character and then animate the character here in Unity, but we're not going to do that. We already have sprites, so there's no need. Adding in animations is very easy. You can just go to the animation folder. Alright, so these are the separate sprites that make up the idle animation. Now an animation consists of a lot of sprites that give the illusion of moving. So these are the sprites that we're going to use to make a full animation, a full idle animation. And select the animations you would like. Now I just selected this one and selected the last one using Shift. These are the idle animations, and then I'm going to add them to my player right here. Awesome, now it'll show create new animation. It'll show me where to create this animation. So I'm just going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it anim. I'm going to call this animation idle. Awesome, so now let's just go to the window. Let's go to animation and let's go to the animator. Now we have this idle animation. I'm just going to click here and set this to normal again, or whatever you need this animation. I need this animation idle, so it just popped up here. So now we have the idle animation, and as we can see right here, there's a yellow arrow pointing it from entry to idle. So what this just means is that this is the layer default state. So this is the default state for the player. When the player isn't doing anything, this animation is playing. You can set the default state of an animation. You can set the animation to default state by just right clicking on the animation in the animator window and setting it to set as layer default state. Now let's add in the walk animation. I'm just gonna do the same thing I did with the idle animation, and I'm gonna put it on the player. Now I'm gonna go back, go to anim, and type in walk. Awesome, now a walk animation just started. Now we want a way to go from idle to walking, to the walk animation. So let's just create a transition. We can do that by right clicking on the idle animation and setting make transition, and then setting the transition to walk. Now we have the transition to walk. And when we want to stop walking, we actually want to go back to the idle animation. But you see, Unity doesn't know when to transition to the walk animation, so we actually had to tell it in code. So in the conditions right here, I'm just going to create a parameter. You can actually create a bool, a trigger, an int, or a float parameter. I'm just going to create a bool parameter and set it to is walking. Now I'm going to go here and select the is walking to true. And from the walk to idle, I'm going to set the is walking to false. I'm gonna select I'm gonna deactivate has exit time. I'm gonna set the transition duration to 0.01. Same thing for the going animation. And I'm gonna delete has exit time. Now, the reason I did that is just to make the animation more snappy. And the transition duration is almost instant. Now we have the isWalking bool parameter. Now we can go in script. Now let's just select this jump. Alright, so to add in animations, we have to get to the animator component. So the same way we got the rigid body component, we're just going to type in animator and anim. Now to get the animator component, our animator component to be exact, or the player's animator component, we're just going to type in anim equals get component animator. So the animator component, the player's animator component to be exact, is stored as anim. Now to add in animations, we're just going to call in the anim class and set it to set bool. We have to type the exact name of the bool, so what's it called? Is walking. Alright, so right here we set anim.setBool is walking, and maybe we want to set it to true. But actually, when do we want to set anim.setBool is walking? When do we want to set is walking to true? We haven't specified that. So what it's gonna happen if we leave the code like this, what it's gonna happen is when we start the game update, it'll just keep on setting is walking to true, and we actually do not want that. So if x input does not equal 0, so it either is 1 or -1, so we're moving, we can set anim.setBool is walking to true. Else, you can set is walking to false. Awesome. Now if we go and check it out, if we go right or if we go left, awesome, we can see that we can go left and right and the animation actually plays. Awesome. But I think the animation is a bit too slow, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the speed of the animation actually ×2. And what I'm also gonna do I'm going to set using Unity engine.scene management so we can actually manage our scene. And I'm going to set an if statement, input. So scene manager.load scene, what scene do we want to load? We want to actually load the active scene. So the active scene method, and we want to get the active scene's name, and we want to load it. So we want to load the current scene. So basically it's just a fancy way of saying restart our scene. That is when the R key is pressed. Now I'm going to go to the player and set the speed to something like 300, and maybe set the scale to something like 0.74. Now if I go left, if I go right, awesome. Now if I restart it, and I go left, I go right. Now let's add in the jump animation. So I'm just gonna go here, I'm gonna go to jump, I'm gonna select all these animations and I'm gonna set them to my player. Now I'm gonna go back, go to anim and set this to jump. Awesome. Now I'm gonna create a new bool parameter. I'm gonna set it to has jumped. Now I'm going to create a transition from idle to has jump to jump, and from walk to jump, and also from jump to idle. Now I'm going to select the exit time, set it to 0.01, same thing here, 0.01, and same thing here, 0.01. Now set the condition to has jumped, and set this condition to has jumped but false, and set this condition to has jumped also but true. Awesome. So we can go from the walk animation to the jump animation if we are jumping, and we can go from the idle animation to the jump animation, and back from the jump animation to the idle animation. This arrow from walk to jump is basically if we're walking. So if the walk animation is playing, and we jumped, we want to transition to the jump animation. Awesome. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open this animations region, and I'm gonna set if not is grounded. Then what I want to do is I want to play in the anim.setBool has jump, and I want to set it to true. Else, if we are grounded, so anim.setBool equals false. Now this works perfectly, but this is actually already a bool statement. So what we can do is we can just delete this if statement. I'm gonna just take the anim.setBool, but first let's check if this works or not. Now if I go left, right, and if I jump, the jump animation plays. But this is already a bool statement. So what we actually can do is we can just delete all of this. I'm just gonna cut this. I'm gonna just delete the rest. What we can do is we can set it has jumped to not is grounded. So basically, just to simplify what this means, when we're grounded, so I'm just gonna open Notepad. When we're grounded is equal to true, correct? And when we're not grounded, then is grounded is equal to false. So basically this has a bit of logic to it, and if you're already not a programmer, it may seem a bit weird to talk about. So we're basically just inverting these statements. When we're grounded is equal to true, but when we're grounded not is grounded, which is the opposite of true, is false. Now it has some weird logic to it. It may seem a bit hard, but it's actually really easy if you think about it. So it's basically the same as that if statement, but it's way easier, and it's just one line of code. Now if I go back and check if this works or not, and if I jump, this too works. Awesome. But there's actually one more thing to do, is we go to the animations folder, and we set jump to loop time. So we don't want to loop it. So as we saw when we played it, the jump animation actually, when it finishes, it goes back and it loops. So we don't want it to loop. We just want to play it one time. Now if we play again, alright, now we can go left and right, jump,